July 1807. Napoleon Bonaparte is at the absolute peak of his power. He has just crushed Prussia and Russia, signed the Treaty of Tilsit on a raft in the middle of a river, because when you're winning that hard, you sign treaties on rafts, and he now effectively runs continental Europe. To celebrate, his staff organizes a fun afternoon, a rabbit hunt for the emperor and his officers. Within the hour, the most powerful man on earth will be fleeing across a field, swatting at rabbits, in what witnesses describe as a coordinated assault. This is the story of the day dinner fought back. This is Oops History, true stories that sound fake. Today, Napoleon versus the rabbits. The rabbits win, and I need you to appreciate just how untouchable Napoleon was that month. At Tilsit, he met Tsar Alexander of Russia on a specially built pavilion floating in the middle of the river Niemen. Two emperors deciding the fate of the continent on a barge, while the King of Prussia, whose country they were carving up, waited on the riverbank like a kid not invited into the treehouse. That is the level of power we're talking about. France's borders had never been wider. His enemies were exhausted. Nothing on earth could touch him. Nothing human, anyway. The man responsible for this catastrophe is Marshal Alexandre Berthier, Napoleon's chief of staff, and historically, one of the greatest military organizers who ever lived. Berthier was the man who turned Napoleon's chaotic genius into marching orders for 500,000 men. Logistics, timetables, supply lines. Berthier was the spreadsheet behind the empire. Remember that because it makes what happens next so much funnier. Berthier wanted the emperor's hunt to be perfect. Outdoor luncheon, carriages, officers in their finest, and, crucially, guaranteed rabbits. A proper hunt needs game, and Berthier was not the kind of man to leave rabbit availability to chance, so he ordered rabbits brought in. Lots of rabbits. Accounts range from several hundred to as many as 3,000 caged and ready around the edge of a grand lawn. And here is the single most important detail in this entire story: the mistake upon which empires of comedy are built. Berthier's men did not trap wild rabbits. Wild rabbits are skittish, hard to catch, annoying to source in bulk. Instead, they bought farm rabbits. Domesticated, hutch-raised, hand-fed rabbits. Rabbits whose entire life experience had taught them exactly one lesson. When humans arrive, food arrives, the day arrives. Napoleon and his officers take their positions, guns ready. The signal is given, the cages open, and several thousand rabbits look out at a field full of humans and process the situation using the only training they have. They do not flee. They charge. The entire warren, in something like formation, sprints directly at the Emperor of the French. To the rabbits, this is not a battle. This is lunch service, and the tall man in the famous hat is clearly the head waiter. What follows, according to the accounts that survive, is pandemonium. A tide of rabbits swarms the hunting party. They mob Napoleon's legs. They climb his boots. Some accounts have them scrambling up toward his jacket as he tries to shake them off. The officers, veterans of Austerlitz, men who had stared down cavalry charges, are flailing at knee height with riding crops and sticks. The emperor's party attempts to drive them off. The rabbits, unarmed but extremely motivated, keep coming. There are always more rabbits. And then the detail that elevates this from farce to legend. As Napoleon retreated to his carriage, the swarm, according to the traditional telling, split into two wings and flowed around the flanks to cut him off at the carriage doors. A pincer movement. The rabbits, by pure accident of hunger, executed the exact battlefield maneuver Napoleon had used to destroy professional armies. The greatest tactician of his age was outflanked at his own party by entrees. Napoleon reached the carriage, still throwing rabbits out of the way. Some versions insist a few made it inside and had to be evicted at speed. The carriage rolled. The Emperor of Europe fled the field, and behind him several thousand rabbits presumably concluded that lunch had been canceled and reviews would be mixed. By the way, this was not even Napoleon's first defeat by a small animal. On his wedding night with Josephine, her pug, Fortuné, who was accustomed to sleeping in her bed and had strong opinions about staffing changes, bit the future emperor of the French on the leg, hard enough to scar by Napoleon's own telling. Napoleon, who would go on to redraw the map of Europe, was not able to renegotiate the dog's position. Fortuné stayed in the bed. The pattern was there from the start, is what I'm saying. The man's weakness was never armies. It was anything under 10 kilograms with an agenda. Honesty Corner, as always, the story comes to us primarily through